Hey there, Jordan Sheridan live, Status Coup. It is Thursday, January 27th, 2022. Hope everybody's having a lovely day. I hope everybody's staying safe in these very, very trying times. COVID is still a thing, even though the media wants you to think it's getting back to normal. So we've tried to stay on that, but we're also going to talk about a really important topic today, which I'm glad I saw a press release about yesterday, because what's going on right now with the Democratic National Committee, and in my view, what they are doing to subvert democracy is not acceptable. So we have two great guests coming up. Before we get to those two great guests, I just wanted to remind folks we are about an hour away from Status Coup's monthly members call. So we're doing our monthly members call with Status Coup members at 7 o'clock Eastern time on Zoom. So if you're a new member, we've gotten a lot of members over the last week and a half, thanks to the Flint story I broke. We've gotten over 100 new members in about a week. So if you're a new member, you will get the link to join our Zoom call coming up at 7 o'clock Eastern. This applies also to patrons. So if you're a member or a patron, you will get a link to your email to join our Zoom call. So I look forward to seeing people in about an hour at 7 o'clock Eastern time for our members call. If you're not a member, join. $5 a month, 16 cents a day, statuscoup.com/join. And if you join before 7 o'clock, you'll get the link to join the Zoom call. You do not have to be on camera, by the way, on Zoom. So you could mute your video if you don't want to be on camera and listen. It's pretty interactive. I give you a little spiel at the beginning, and then I answer questions, comments, concerns. A lot of fun. With that said, joining me now is Liano Sharon. I hope I'm pronouncing your name somewhat right, as well as Judith Whitmer. Let me start with Judith, who is the chairwoman of the Nevada State Democratic Party. And Liano, you are a DNC member, but you are a DNC member at the federal level, but you have also been very active in Michigan in the state party for many, many years. So we have Nevada as well as Michigan. Let me just read real quickly the bio I have, so I give props where it's due. Judith, who is now the Nevada State Chairwoman, you were first elected to the State Central Committee in 2015. After serving as a state convention delegate for Bernie in 2016, you were elected to the Clark County Executive Board in 2017 and served there for 2 terms. In 2019, you founded the Left Caucus as a chartered Democratic caucus for the purpose of moving the party to the left from the inside. And in a coalition with the Las Vegas Democratic Socialists of America, Left Caucus was instrumental in Bernie's landslide victory at the 2020 Nevada caucus. And Liano, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Liano's right. Yep.
Yeah. You joined the Michigan Democratic Party in 2016 to move the party left. And you've been studying how the party works, why it works that way, and developing ideas about how to move it further to the left. And you were elected to the Michigan Democratic Party State Central Committee in 2017 by the Progressive Insurgency and continue to serve there today. DNC members are automatically State Central members. So smash the like button, by the way. Thumbs up right under the live stream. The more people that press like, the more people that will see this. So let me start with a little history lesson if people don't know. Colin, if you have the article I just sent you. So last year, there was a pretty big takeover on the state level in Nevada. This is from Business Insider. The state Democratic Party in Nevada has for years been among the strongest in the country, but trusted by the state's powerful former Senator Harry Reid, who now obviously has passed away. This was written while he was still alive, and credited with helping Democrats chalk up wins in the swing states since 2016. But that reputation took a hit this week after a slate of Bernie Sanders-aligned progressives backed by a local chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America won the party's top leadership polls. The results prompted resignations of the party's staff and consultants. So, Judith, this was less than a year ago. Progressives took over the Nevada State Democratic Party. You won through Democratic elections. Right away, it seems that the old guard, which Harry Reid was basically the boss of the Nevada everything, that a lot of them kind of took their ball and went home. They weren't happy that progressives took over. But the new developments now is, even though you are the duly elected chairwoman of the state party, a progressive, and other, whatever they want to call it, Bernie-backed, DSA-backed progressives have taken leadership, the Democratic National Committee federally, instead of recognizing you and working with you to win elections, to fundraise, what have you, they're now working around you, basically with, correct me if I'm wrong, a not affiliated super PAC. Can you tell me what's going on?
Sure. So I think everyone has probably heard the history by now of how we won the election. It was a lot of organizing, but we won a fair election. From the time that we won that election, there was a refusal by the old guard to actually work with us. So they met secretly with Washoe County Democratic Party and then released a press release saying that they were going to host the coordinated campaign and all of the elected officials' campaigns out of Washoe County instead of working with the state party. And so there's been this drive since then to circumvent and work around the entire state party structure, even though we've been doing the work, doing the job that we were elected to do, which is expand the Democratic Party, make sure that, we're including everyone and everyone has, their voices are heard, they're able to participate in the process. We do community outreach, community engagement, community service throughout the year, not just paying lip service at election time. And we have openly stated that we support the reelection of all our Democratic candidates. They still do not want to work with us. We've tried over and over again to get them to the table, to get them to talk to us, to get them to respond to us. And then through a lot of investigative work, we were able to uncover a lot of documentation that showed that this was in process prior to our election, because their internal polling showed them that I was going to win the election. They immediately made moves to start this process. So even though they're trying to claim that they can't trust us, they can't work with us, they didn't even give us a chance, because as soon as they saw that I was going to win the election, they transferred $450,000 out of the Treasury to the DSCC. Then they transferred $18,000 out of the Treasury to Washoe County Dems. And they gave away our entire state voter file, which is illegal, for $0, signed a contract with a PAC to give them our entire state voter file. And then they turned around and initiated a transfer of our state voter file to Washoe County. So all of these things were put into play before we even actually won office, because they were anticipating that we would win office. And then, all the documentation we have proves that. And then from day one, they have made statements like, we're going to destroy the state party. The only way we'll work with the party is if they hand over the keys and hand over control. Things like statements like that, whereas we've said nothing along those lines. We've kept the upper road and said, hey, we can work together on this. The goal here is to elect Democrats. The goal is to keep Republican extremists out of office. So let's work together. Let's come to terms with how that's going to look. If you want to run the top of the ticket, fine. Then don't try to divert our funding or take away our funding and let us do down ballot races. Because quite frankly, down ballot races are just as critical to Nevadans. We can support school board races, which the schools are battlegrounds now. We can support city council, judicial races, county commission races, things like that are actually have a real impact on the daily lives of Nevadans. But yet they still are determined to strip the state party assets. And so at the top of the ticket, our federal elected officials signed a complaint, sent it to the DNC, didn't even send it to us, didn't even pick up the phone or send an email saying, hey, we've got a problem, let's work it out. They sent a complaint to DNC Chair Harrison asking for him to give them emergency van access, and that it had to be through Washoe County. They didn't want it from the state party. And this is right after, just a few weeks after, we offered them free van access with in-kind reporting, because that's the.
And I just want to be clear so the audience understands. Van is the voting database, the voter files.
Van is the tool you use to utilize the voter file. So there's a voter file, and then Van is an actual tool to access that voter file and then to use that data. in ways that help your campaign or help the Democratic Party, as far as like canvassing and contacting people, phone banking, texting, all those things are through Van, or
Right.
they start with, using Van as a tool. So that tool is an asset of the state party. Your voter file, every state party owns their state voter file. It's not owned by the DNC, but we have a data sharing agreement in place that the DNC and the state party can swap data, that's useful for both of us. But they violated the terms of that agreement recently, because in that data sharing agreement it says all this is supposed to come through the state party. We're supposed to get transfer funds from the DSCC, from the D-TRIP, and we're supposed to get funding from the DNC. And so what's happened now is, because these elected officials signed a complaint against us with false allegations, didn't even come to us first, but tried to say that we refused to give them Van access. And so therefore they can't trust us. Now, this is after months and months of Van agreements sitting on their desks, asking them repeatedly to sign them so we could get them onto Van. It's after us finally saying, okay, you don't want to sign the agreements, we'll give you free Van access. All we have to do is report it as an in-kind contribution. You're good to go. And every single one of our elected officials and our state legislators refuse to take Van access from us for free. And so normally they would have to pay like $2,500 or on up.
I just want to boil this down so the audience gets it, because I'm not a lawyer, but some of this sounds very fishy and straddling the line legally. Number one, there was elections held. So the Democratic Party has been talking about we got to fight for voting rights. Right. They have been rightly so knocking down Trump's crazy election fraud nonsense, which is not true. Mm-hmm. So they've been saying we're the party of democracy, free and fair elections, this and that. You other progressives won a fair election. So you took over the leadership of the party.
Yep.
When you won, they literally basically cleaned out the cookie jar. Yep. They took huge sums of money that the new leaders would need just to get off. You just get elected. You obviously need a pot of money for everything that a state party does. They basically, I don't know if, I stole it. I don't know. I mean, that was the property of the Nevada. That was the property of the Nevada State Democratic Party, which progressives had just won an election to take over. They stole the money. They stole the money. Then they basically from what the sounds of it, they've created a shadow state party.
Yes.
Run by establishment old guard people.
Yes.
By the way, so the audience knows, the official shadow state party they've created is called the Nevada Democratic Victory, an organization that's not even affiliated with the state party. And the resources that are normally given to the state party from the DNC, instead of going to the official state party, is going to this super PAC, based on what you're saying are false statements that were made to the Federal Election Commission. So my next question, and we'll get to you, Liano, what is this? This does not sound legal. Some of what they're doing. Has there been any legal challenges here?
Yes, we filed several FEC challenges. We haven't had a ruling on them yet, but we did file several challenges to the FEC. We're going to have to ask for an FEC legal advisory opinion because they still haven't made a ruling yet. And months have gone by. Basically two things. One, they claimed affiliation. They formed a federal committee. NDV formed a federal committee so that they could take campaign funds and take DSC transfer funds and D-TRIP transfer funds. And then they claimed affiliation through Washoe County. When the FEC said, hey, you can't do that, then Washoe County says they gave away state party affiliation without our consent, which is also against our bylaws. So it is illegal. And they've made false statements to the FEC based on saying that they have the right to give away our state party affiliation. So they're claiming that they've given NDV state party affiliation. And the problem here is that they can now max out our contributions. They can now rack up penalties or any kinds of liabilities, and guess who's on the hook for it? We have no oversight, but all the liability.
So they've basically hijacked they've hijacked your party. And why this is damaging, whether it's Nevada or Wisconsin, I mean, state parties rely on the DNC in some ways for the infrastructure, in other ways for fundraising, in other ways for, everything from canvassing to many other things. So you're talking the midterms are 11 months away.
Correct.
And you're basically being just blacked out by the federal party, even though you are the duly elected leader. I don't know. That doesn't sound like a party interested in free and fair elections or working with, even if these leaders are not, are slightly to the left of them. It seems like a party that is basically making a mockery of democracy. You won fair and square, but instead of working with you, they're basically creating a new party closer to their neoliberal view.
Correct. That's exactly what they're attempting to do, and we're fighting back. We're not just going to roll over and play dead on this. We feel very strongly about the fact that we won this election fairly by the state central committee members. We received the majority of votes, and the state central committee is the governing body of the Nevada Democratic Party, period. And as it turns out, polling shows that the majority of Nevadans support progressive policies. So they're not representing Nevadans by doing this either. They're really only representing self-interest. And basically, the whole consulting class under the Reid machine is still functioning and has hijacked, the whole coordinated campaign, because there's tons of money in an election. I'm sure you know that there's way too much money that flows through in these elections, and the majority of it goes to consultants. And, these consultants that have been doing business with the state party for a long time don't want to do business with us because we have certain standards. We've said, hey, we're only going to work with local and minority vendors. We're going to make sure that, that we're being efficient. We're not going to pay 3 different companies for the same service. Things that we found and have uncovered since we took office are just atrocious. And so we want to basically end that toxic culture and create a level playing field for all Democratic candidates. And that's from the beginning what I've said during my campaign and what we've been able to start achieving. And they don't like that. Pure and simple. It's all about power and control. It really has nothing to do with ideology. Ideology is never mentioned. They never talk about us pushing for progressive policy. It's all about, oh, they can't trust us. There's no way they can possibly trust us. What does that even mean? And then so they filed this complaint with Chair Harrison. And so Chair Harrison called me and said, hey, this is unprecedented. We've got all these elected officials that are mad. And I'm like, well, that's nice. It would have been nice if they'd called me or complained to us once. They never did. They wouldn't return our calls. They wouldn't respond to us. They wouldn't schedule meetings with us. And then all of a sudden to have this complaint sitting with Chair Harrison. And then he says to me, after I tried to explain to him what's been going on and everything, and he seemed to be listening. And I asked him, I said, can you hold off on doing anything? Let us resolve this. I mean, if they want van access, we've been trying to give it to them for almost a year now. So let us just give it to them, tell them they have to get it from the state party and don't give it to them through Washoe County. And he seemed like he was, not going to do that. He was only going to give it to the top, elected officials, and that was it. And then we got a word a few days later that he indeed did exactly what they wanted. He gave it to Washoe County to give to them. And we don't even know if Washoe County is selling it, if they're giving it for free, if they're doing the appropriate reporting that they're required to do for income contributions. We don't know because we don't have access. We can't see it. We can't see what they're doing. And so we're going into this blind. And in the end, he says, well, my hands are really tied in this because I got a call from the White House. I'm like, oh, that's great. So basically, this is a directive from the White House.
So let me just make sure I have it. Let me make sure I have it right. The DNC chairman, Jamie Harrison, who you spoke with about the fact that basically the Democratic National Committee has created a shadow state party in Nevada so that they won't actually work with the duly elected leaders. He told you my hands are tied because what the DNC doing is basically they're getting directives from the White House to basically basically make the elected state party obsolete?
I don't want to second guess Chair Harrison. All I know is that he told me that his hands were tied because he was getting a call from the White House. Now, whether that's, calls from the president or calls from political operatives within the White House, I don't know what that means exactly, other than I do know for a fact that political operatives within the DNC have been colluding with NDV from the very start and have been hostile to us from the very start and making false allegations from the very start without even talking with us. And every time I would make a call to the executive director of the DNC, I would, get this real hostile attitude towards me, like, hey, you're not doing something right, or you're doing something wrong. And I was like, well, what? I mean, can we get everybody to the table and let's talk it out? I could never get them to meet with us. Over and over again, we tried. And then at one point, we introduced a motion to strengthen existing language in our bylaws about state party authority and not being able to give away affiliation. So the propaganda went out from our elected officials and from Washoe County that, we were going to revoke Washoe County's charter, which isn't what our intent was. Our intent was to try to get them to the table, to talk with us and set terms, and to strengthen the existing bylaws that say it's the state party's rights, and the state party has this authority, not the counties. But they did this whole campaign against us then, this whole smear campaign about what we were trying to do that wasn't correct. And then our elected officials had the chair of Washoe County circulate a letter from them with all these false accusations to all of our SEC members on our e-board. And I'm like, so they're interfering in the business of the SEC at that point. And, we had to we pulled the amendment. We withdrew the motion because we wanted to bring it back again, maybe in the future, because it's very, very necessary. And it's actually an amendment that the ASDC, which is the Association of Democratic Committees, has advocated for. They've actually encouraged state parties to pass these kinds of amendments to protect state party rights. So we were doing something that's been legitimized and advocated for by the ASDC. And yet we had to pull it because we couldn't get a fair debate on it, even though I think we could have whipped the votes for it. We didn't want to bring something to the floor that had already become so filled with hostility. So we decided to withdraw it. And we still couldn't get them to the table because they were saying, if you withdraw the motion, we'll come to the table and talk with you. They still refused. So it was just, they've decided that it's their way or no way. And they would rather tear down the entire state Democratic Party than work with us.
Leanna, let me ask you, because you're in Michigan. I've been there a couple times in my day. No stranger to corruption. I'm sure the state party of Michigan has similar mechanisms. Michigan is kind of a machine town, just like New York. Seems like Nevada under the Harry Reid machine. What's going on in Nevada? You're a member of the DNC. What's the point of elections for a state, for a political party, Republican Party, Democratic Party, on the actual party level, meaning the DNC, the RNC? What's the point of elections if on the state level, whether it's progressives or more right-leaning Democrats, but in this case progressives? What's the point if they do the organizing, if they do the messaging, if they get the votes to take over a state party, but the federal DNC basically says, "Oh no, either you're too progressive for us, or nah, you're not with the old guard here. You don't know how things are done. So you could have the title, but we're actually going to go around you." I mean, how do people have faith in the Democratic Party then if elections don't matter?
Well, they shouldn't. That's the fact of the matter. Is unfortunately the charter, the Democratic Party charter, right in the first paragraph, it says that a party that wishes to lead must demonstrate that it trusts the people that it would lead. And what we're seeing here in Nevada is that Harry Reid and apparently the White House, or some operatives in the White House, and the senators and several of the reps from Nevada don't trust the people of Nevada and are effectively giving them a big fuck you. They're saying, we don't care who you voted into leadership. We care about who gets to hold the money. That's what we care about. Okay, that's what's going on right now with this Nevada Democratic victory, which is basically like the literally the people that the Democrats of Nevada just explicitly rejected as their leadership is being given that leadership by Jamie Harrison, acting on orders from the White House, apparently. Mm-hmm. So that, to me, that's not democracy. That's dictatorship. Show me where in the Democratic Party rules it says that Joe Biden, the president of the United States, gets to say jack shit about who runs the party in Nevada or who runs the party in DC, because there's no rule that says that the president of the United States, whether he's a Democrat or anybody else, gets to decide who runs the party. The people are supposed to run the Democratic Party. And if the people are not the ones that are running the Democratic Party, we got to ask ourselves, who's really running it?
Right.
Okay. Because who's running it is the corporations and the 1%.
Well, Chairwoman Whitmer mentioned something, and I think something you just touched on too. It seems like they're less interested in whether it's progressives running it, neoliberals running it, the mailman running it, as long as they have control over the budget. They have control over spending, because Chairwoman Whitmer mentioned, she was basically alluding to the consultant industrial complex. Yeah. So the Democratic Party, and the Republicans have this too, but the Democratic Party, they just have the same consultants that they grease their wheels election after election. They spend, God knows, they spend more money on consultants than actually trying to get voters out. And what Chairwoman Whitmer was saying is, when she got into office, when she won and progressives took over, they saw, wait a minute, we're spending all this. We're paying 3 people to do the same thing, or we're paying 3 firms to do the same thing, and all this excess wasteful spending. But the Democratic Party, it seems, is built on that patronage and that kind of cesspool spending to grease the wheels of the consultants, the pollsters, and all that. So would you say that part of why they're basically creating this shadow state party and fighting with the elected leaders is because the elected leaders are saying, no, we're actually going to spend money wisely. We're not going to just spend the money to grease, the club's wheels.
No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. The Chair Whitmer and the progressives in the State Central Committee in Nevada have been very clear that they're not going to play any of those games. They're not going to grease everybody's hands. They're going to ask for value for money. Okay. Because this is money that's coming from grassroots contributions. These are coming from people who have kitchen table issues, donating $5 a month or even $1 here and there. Okay. And therefore they need value for money. And Chair Whitmer and the Nevada Democratic Party are saying, we want value for money. And what DNC Chair Harrison and what Senator Cortez Masto and the rest of these people are saying is, we want to spend a lot of money on consultants. Like, for example, with the van, NDV doesn't appear to be offering it for free. State party's offering it for free. And you've got a bunch of people in the state in the state Democratic coalition, state senators, state House people, House reps and senators at the federal level, who are saying that, no, we're not going to take it from you for free because we're being pressured to take it from these people for money. So They're being pressured to pay. I
want to make clear so I understand it, Chairwoman. So the state party has access to the voter files, Van. So you have access to the voter files, and the DNC is saying you're not giving it to them, or is it the opposite and you don't have access to the voter files?
No, we do have access to Van, but what happened was our elected officials have built this false narrative claiming that we refused to give them Van access, even though we've been trying to give it to them for months. They kept refusing to sign agreements, refusing to take it from us. We even said, hey, you can have it for free. And they still, in follow-up phone calls, we managed to get a couple of legislators to say, hey, we can't. Our leadership has said, no, you can't work with the state party. So sorry, we can't take free van access. because they want those state legislators to buy into the NDV coordinated campaign and pay thousands and thousands of dollars to their coordinated campaign. And then maybe that state legislator might get some trickle down monies, or they might get their van access and a couple of field organizers. But that's why we keep losing down ballot races. So as the state party, we said, we've got to focus on down ballot races. And when you divert our funding, we can't help those down ballot candidates the way we would like to. We set up our own coordinated campaign, and we said, okay, we're not going to try to compete with NDV, but we are going to do a 17 county strategy. We call it Democrats for Nevada. And it's built around down ballot races and even identifying, targeting races in rural counties. We're working with all of our rural county chairs to make gains there as well, because we don't want to leave anyone behind, and we don't want Republican extremists in office in any county in Nevada. It's not just about the top of the ticket, but you've got this whole class that it is just about the top of the ticket. So they want all the money to funnel the top. They want complete control, complete power over it. And even though it's not sustainable. So we're trying to create a sustainable infrastructure in the state party that is built on, the premise of the People's Democratic Party. And here we've got all this money going to the top of the ticket, ignoring all these down ballot races. We could start losing some of our state legislative offices. Right now we have a majority. Why would you gamble with that? It doesn't make any sense to gamble with that. Why wouldn't we work together or find a way to work together? And this whole narrative about, oh, they can't trust us. Based on what? Based on what? They're trying to claim it's totally based on the fact that we didn't give them van access. But yet we have documentation proving that we did try to give them van access. But it was enough for them to get what they wanted. They sent this false letter to Chair Harrison. They didn't send it to us. They didn't even try to resolve anything with us. They bypassed us completely, called the White House. And then Chair Harrison gives them exactly what they want, which is they give van access, our voter file, our entire statewide voter file to Washoe County, which is unheard of. Usually a county just has county access because that's the work they're doing is in their county. So now they have our entire state voter file. And we don't know we do know they gave it to NDV because we were able to confirm that. So NDV now has our van access and our voter file. And we haven't been compensated for it. We don't know who's getting paid for it. We don't know where the money's going. And we don't know who's actually got use of it. Who did they give van access to as individuals or campaigns? We don't know that.
And what's amazing to me, maybe you want to answer this, Liano, putting aside that it seems illegal to me, it seems they've literally stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars from the state Democratic Party, created a shadow Democratic Party that's not affiliated with the official state Democratic Party. And they're basically trying to create a scheme where they're going to pretend that they elect the official state Democratic Party, won't give them access to the voter files, even though they have tried to give them access to the voter files. And it seems like they're trying to make money off of the voter files by giving it to the shadow government. Putting all that aside, how the hell do you win elections if you have an official state party, an illegal super PAC shadow state party? Who the hell knows? There's no continuity there. You have this shadow party. Who the hell knows what they're doing, how they're organizing, if they're organizing? Are they what is the messaging they're sending out? How do you win elections? You said this Cortez Masto is up for re-election. There's other people up for re-election. Yeah. There's significant races there. How in the hell do you have a cohesive organizing strategy if you have basically sabotage from outside?
And you don't. And the problem here is that they already know, the numbers already show it's not sustainable. I mean, Biden should have walked away with the election here. It was only a 2-point margin of victory. I mean, you can't say that that's a sustainable number because our numbers have dwindled consistently from when Obama won to now. The numbers have gone tighter and tighter and tighter. We've got very, very narrow margins in our wins for the Democratic Party. Why can't they see that? I mean, plus our nonpartisan registration is way up. And of course, they're trying to claim that's because of automatic voter registration at the DMV. only 59% can be accounted from automatic voter registration. If we not do nonpartisan voter engagement and non-voter engagement and do the work to reach those voters, that's going to prevent us from having the margins we need to win.
And real quick, just sit with me for this quick promo. We're a half hour away now, a half hour away from the members call. So if you're a Status Coup member, you'll be getting a link in just a few minutes to our Zoom call. So we'll start that at 7 o'clock Eastern. If you're not a Status Coup member, what the hell are you doing? Sign up. $5 a month. That's 16 cents a day. If you sign up now, you'll get the link to join our members call. It's through Zoom, statuscoup.com/join. You don't have to have your Zoom camera on, by the way, to members. You could mute your video and just listen if you want. That's coming up at 7 o'clock Eastern. So kind of last call. If you want to sign up now, statuscoup.com/join. Liano, I don't know. I mean, I'm not really, I'm an independent. It's not for me to burn down the DNC or boost up the Democrats, but there's a whole lot of deflated progressives out there.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of deflated progressives who knocked on doors for Bernie, knocked on doors for down ballot candidates, phone banked, text banked, donations, the whole nine. And they're listening to this and saying, well, you know, fool me once, shame on you, or the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over. What is your message to them? Because you both are Democrats. You have both done it the right way, going through the party system. In Chairwoman Whitmer's case, she won. She ran and she won. But why should people watching even bother with the Democratic Party if it seems like they're making a mockery of just state party elections and the way things are supposed to happen, where you win an election, you control the state party, and the state party gets support from the DNC. Why should people stick with trying to work through the Democratic Party if this is what's happening on a state level?
Well, what they should do is they should organize with people who are trying to change the Democratic Party. So, for example, nationally, there's an organization called People for Democratic Party Reform, which is pdpr.org. Here in Michigan, we have My Solidarity. It's misolidarity.org. In Nevada, of course, you've got the Nevada Dems with Judith Whitmer and all the progressives over there that are doing a great job. And we are, here in Michigan, this past year, we won a third of the elected DNC members, and we won 20% of the state central committee. And we're keeping going. We are organizing, and we are organizing to win in the Democratic Party. And in Michigan, we have a significant advantage in that any resident of Michigan 16 years or older can join the Democratic Party and get an equal vote. They have to wait 30 days, but because they have a hazing period, but join 30 days in advance, get to vote, 16 years or older. MySolidarity.org, go there. pdpr.org, go there, join, get together with other people who see these problems and want to change them. Because the way that I see it, over the past 150 years, the duopoly has built a wall around our government. There are two doors in that wall. There's the red door and there's the blue door. And we have three choices to get our government back. We can go through the red door, through the blue door, or through the wall. And right now, the easiest way to get into our government is through the blue door. We just need enough people to not be so pissed off at the establishment that they're not going to participate, but get pissed off enough into the establishment to come into the party and kick them the fuck out.
And Chairwoman, let me ask you a basic question. I've covered campaigns, right? So I know how hard it is for progressives to win. It must be incredibly frustrating, demoralizing, where it's not like you just won. You got for progressives to take over a state party, that takes years to happen. So the fact that you guys actually won, you take over the state party, and now you're fighting the second battle to actually be allowed to lead.
Right.
I mean, this must be incredibly infuriating and frustrating, not just for you, but I'm sure other progressives who have won elected positions within the Nevada State Party.
It is frustrating, but it's not like we didn't expect the obstruction to still go on. We did. We very much were prepared for the fact that it was still going to be a battle. It wasn't just going to end. And I think that a lot of these underhanded tactics were also expected. We just weren't sure as to what extent they would go to, like gambling, a critical election, midterm election, just to keep progressives out of the process. But my point here is that we have to keep going. We have to keep moving forward. We know that there's progressives working in every state now. I've been inspired by how many progressive caucuses there are within the Democratic Party of each state that are doing the same work. We meet regularly. There's Progressive Democrats of America, OR, Roots Action, the Bernie Delegate Network, PDPR. All these organizations are actually forming coalition, doing coalition work. We're getting bigger, we're getting more organized, and believe me, progressives know how to organize. That's why Bernie won by a landslide here in Nevada, and we're still organizing. Progressives actually are, the majority of voters here in Nevada, but we're not recognized as such. I would say the old guard would prefer that progressives just go away. They were actually hoping we would all dim exit again. They don't want to work with us, and they don't think they need us. But a 2-point margin isn't enough to say progressives can all, go fuck off because we don't need you. I wouldn't be doing that with a 2-point margin. I think that's just not only a gamble, it's just pure stupidity if you want to win an election. And we have to keep these Republican extremists out of office. So in my opinion, it's going to be up to progressives to do that work, because we're not seeing it happening from the old guard who just is holding on to power and control, and that's their main drive. It's all about the money. For us, it's all about a democracy, a true democracy that represents the people. And the only way we're going to have that is by keep fighting, and we've got to fight together if we're going to win together. And so that's how we keep pushing here in Nevada for progressives to stay organized, to stay engaged, and to have their voices heard in every community. We work with all communities of color to empower those communities, to help mentor candidates, recruit candidates to run for office. I mean, that's what it's going to take, because that's not going to happen from the establishment or the old guard. It's just not going to happen. And if those communities want a voice, they need to work with the Progressive Democratic Party here in Nevada to have that voice, because we're the ones willing to help them get there. And it's not going to happen if you've got to go up and kiss the ring every year and get the blessing of the consultant class and the leadership of the legislative caucuses. If you've got to kiss that ring every year to even run for office, and then all of the state party resources are stripped so that they hold those assets and don't give them to any other primary candidates, then the candidates aren't selected by the people. They aren't voted on by the people. The candidates will be continue to be selected by the consultant class, by the big donors, by the corporations. And that's what we have to keep fighting against.
What's so incredible to me, Liano, is you literally have the media, the Democratic Party, that has been huffing and puffing and shitting their pants for the last year because Trump tried to steal an election. And by the way, they should have been. I mean, I don't diminish that. Trump literally was on tape telling the Georgia I forget the Secretary of State, hey, find me like 11,000 something votes. Right. Now you have it came out that Republican leaders might have put in forged documents or something like that. So the Democratic Party and their allies in the media have been hysterical over democracy and over elections trying to be stolen, and the Republicans now trying to change laws state to state to basically take power away from the Secretary of State and give power to the elected the Republican state legislature to basically overturn elections. So this is the messaging for the Democratic Party in terms of we need to fight like hell for democracy and to save elections. And if they meant it, I'd be for it. But then they do stuff like this, which is it's not much different. I mean, they won, but the Democratic Party is essentially making that victory obsolete and just creating a brand new state party that will allow the old guard the Harry Reid machine to basically control the pocketbook. That's what this sounds like. And it seems kind of hollow to me. The Democratic Party wants to huff and puff about Trump and Republicans stealing elections, but they have basically, if not stolen this election, they have basically tried to bury the elected state Democratic Party and created their own.
So that's exactly right. And let me just point out that this is a thing that goes on all the time in the Democratic Party. This is not a one-off thing. This is not just in Nevada. This is everywhere. So, for example, right now in Michigan, we've got the DCCC trying to recruit a Tea Party Republican to run against a good progressive in our new CD10, for example. We've got this kind of stuff that is baked into the way that the Democratic Party normally works. So, for example, in Michigan, as soon as we elect a new state central committee every 2 years, immediately a simple majority of that state central committee can add as many officers as they want. So basically, we can win anything up to under a majority, and immediately the first meeting afterwards, they'll have a supermajority because they can add as many people as they want. But like in 2020 when there were Bernie delegates that they decided were not acceptable, the DNC literally changed the state party rules to allow them to exclude people from the ballot. So this kind of thing goes on pervasively in every state party and in the DNC, and we need people to come into the Democratic Party, join us, and vote these people out, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to get progressive policies passed in this country anytime soon. And
Chairwoman, can I just circle back on one thing, because I want to make sure I have it right? You had reached out to DNC Chair Jamie Harrison. I think he's been chair for about a year. He took over for Tom Perez, and you had told him what's going on, which I think he knows what's going on. It's not like the DNC is doing this without the chairman's blessing. You had voiced what's going on, that the state party is basically the DNC is going around the state party and affiliating with this totally separate super PAC. And he told you that my hands are tied. I'm following the White House's marching orders.
What he said was, this is unprecedented. We've never had all of these elected officials sign. We've never had elected officials sign a complaint against a state party. And, I had a call from the White House, so I feel like my hands are tied. I'm going to have to give them this emergency access. So what we did was we had our federal attorney invoke the rules of the data sharing agreement and request immediate mediation. So we will be going into mediation with our federal attorneys. Sandler Reef are going to represent us in that mediation process. So we will finally have the opportunity to lay out our case and our documentation, our evidence. Now, around that same table is going to be attorneys for Cortez Masto, for Titus, Horsford, and Lee, and the governor. So, it's not going to be those congressional representatives, our senator, or governor at the table with us. Unfortunately, it's going to be representatives, or attorneys or representatives from NDV or the DSC and the DSCC and the DTRIP and the DGA will be there. So we're going to lay out our case. Does that mean we're going to be successful? I don't know, but we have a very, very strong case because we have a lot of documentation. We have a lot of evidence of wrongdoing on their part. And ultimately, though, it's still Chair Harrison's final decision on what happens, whether Washoe County keeps that access and keeps state party assets, or whether he says to them, hey, you can't do this and you got to work with the state party. And you would think that what happened in Virginia would be inspiration to work with the state party. But apparently the Democrats can't learn lessons from their losses. Like in Virginia, they did a workaround the state party, and they had major losses in Virginia.
Can you elaborate on that? How did they work around the
Terry
state party?
McAuliffe campaign and some of those other campaigns did a workaround the state party with one of these PACs and did a coordinated campaign outside of the state party, similar to what NDV and Washoe County is doing. And by doing
was that another example of the state party was a little too left for them
I don't know, because I don't know about Virginia leadership. I couldn't make that assessment, but I do know that they decided they didn't want to work with the state party. And so they did this workaround to circumvent the state party, and they lost. So, and they did something similar in North Carolina back several years ago. In North Carolina Democratic Party, it took them years to recover because they did the same kind of maneuver where they gave a county party all the power. And it basically destroyed the state party for several years. It took North Carolina several years to recover from that. But that doesn't seem to be a concern, is the problem here, is that if you are really concerned about serving your constituents, serving Nevadans, and being true representatives of the people, why would you be doing this? I mean, why would you even gamble? Why would you even take this gamble? To me, it's like a huge gamble in a midterm election when it should be all hands on deck. So we should all be working together to make sure we win. I mean, I don't want a Republican extremist in the governor's seat or the senator's seat. I certainly don't want Nevada to be responsible for losing our U.S. Senate. So why would you risk that and not work with the state party, who's there to fully support every single one of them?
Well, it kind of reminds me of, I think it was Bernie Sanders who said this, actually. But the Democrats would rather go down on the Titanic as long as they're in first class. And that kind of sounds like what's going on here, because you would have, if your main goal was winning, regardless of who runs the state party, but if your main goal was keeping Nevada in Democrat control, keeping the Senate, keeping those Democrats who are currently senators from Nevada in office, electing Democrats in the House, Amy Vilela, I always mispronounce her name. Amy Vilela is running again. If your main goal was winning, you wouldn't be creating shadow state parties that who the hell knows what they're doing, and they might be, you guys might be doing things that are actually hurting, not you, but what they're doing.
Right.
It sounds like, yeah, they want to win, but more so they want to keep the status quo. And progressives taking over the state party has disrupted that status quo. So if they have a chance between winning and keeping the old guard and the Harry Reid machine in power, they're going to take the latter.
And I'm not even sure this isn't necessarily about power. It might just be about them getting paid.
Well, being paid and power kind of coincide.
I did want to make one point, though, is that they say they can't trust us, but yet we haven't given them any reason not to trust us. They haven't given us a chance. And as far as fundraising goes, we put out a statement just recently where we raised almost $900,000 in 2021 since we took office. That's more than the Democratic Party has ever raised before in previous administrations. But yet they can't even bring themselves to acknowledge that. The local blogger there and CEO of the Nevada Independent, who likes to constantly attack progressives.
John Ralston.
Yeah, that guy. By the way, he gets paid by NDV every month just to attack us.
Really?
Yeah, they pay him.
That's interesting.
He gets a check from them.
So this super PAC, NDV, let me get the exact name.
Well, don't forget though, they have registered as a federal committee with the FEC though, and they're being run by the DSCC.
But let me get something straight. Nevada State Democratic Party, which is the shadow state government that the DNC is working with to basically sabotage you.
And Nevada Democratic Victory.
Okay, Nevada Democratic Victory. The shadow state party, Nevada Democratic Victory, that the DNC is working with to sabotage the elected state leaders and sabotage the state Democratic Party. You're telling me that the Nevada Independent's main journalist, John Ralston, is getting paid by them?
Yes, he gets a check from them.
Gotta love journalism these days.
Yes.
And by the way, for all you,
one more kicker that I wanted to tell you is that our former executive director, who was responsible for a lot of this and burning the party down on her way out, that was very loyal to the old guard, is now the political director over Nevada in the DNC. They rewarded her with a political director's position within the DNC, and has been continued to collude against us and conspire against us since taking that position.
Was that Roberta Lang?
No, Roberta Lang is a state legislator now.
Oh, okay. Sorry. And by the
No,
way,
the lamb
John,
amounts.
yeah, John Ralston is the one that pushed that bullshit about Bernie Sanders
Throwing
people
chairs, yes.
throwing chairs.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So let me ask you, just to break it down for people that aren't from Nevada, I mean, what could, there are viewers watching who say, good luck to you. I'm done with the Democratic Party. But for those that still want to fight, what could they do to support the Nevada State Democratic Party, the official one? What could they do in their states to fight, this kind of stuff? What could people do that still want to be active and fight this corruption? What could they do?
Well, I would suggest, we do an inside-outside strategy. So we work with several outside organizations as well as forming our own caucuses within the state party. So the first action that I took was forming Left Caucus, which was chartered under Clark County, which is the largest county, and it's basically Vegas and surrounding area. So once I chartered that caucus, which is a progressive left-leaning caucus, we started to have more power and more ability to organize, and we were able to get the attention of more elected officials, because now we're a chartered Democratic caucus. So you can't just ignore a chartered Democratic caucus, within the Democratic Party as an elected official, or at least you're not supposed to. But it helped us get a start and give people a place to go to start organizing. So Left Caucus became very organized, very big. They've maintained their structure, they've maintained their membership, and they've worked in coalition with all these other organizations, including the Las Vegas DSA, to make sure that we hold on to our majorities, that we keep getting progressives elected into the state central committee, things like that. So that's your first step, is finding a point where you're going to start organizing from. And I think that was key for us, because right after Bernie won here by landslide, I immediately went to work to engage every single Bernie voter coming out of the caucuses. I got a list of those voters, and I contacted every one of them by emails, by phone calls, by text messages, and got them to think about joining Left Caucus and keep them engaged through the county convention process and then through the state convention process. And by doing that, we held our majorities all the way through the county convention, up to the state convention, through the state convention, so that we could start electing progressives to positions of power within the Democratic Party. So that's how we did it. And you can use that same sort of structure or strategy. Every state has a different state central committee structure. There's some similar to Nevada, there's some more similar to Michigan. So you have to know what that structure is and how you're going to get progressives into that system to start with. So by having a point of organizing and getting everybody into that point, that gives you a good starting basis for making other changes.
Absolutely. Any parting thoughts, Liano? You've been in this grind trying to reform the party in Michigan for a long time. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I would just encourage everybody. What I say in Michigan is, if you're burned out, if it's tiring, totally get it. Do me this favor: join the party. Show up one day every 2 years and vote for progressives. That's if you can do that, you can help change the Democratic Party from something that works for the corporations to something that works for the people.
Absolutely. Thank you both for joining me. I'll stay in touch so I could, follow up on this. Nevada State Democratic Party Chairwoman Judith Whitmer, and Michigan DNC member Liano. Let me make sure I got your last name right. Liano, of course. Sharon. I don't have Sharon. Sorry, Liano Sharon. Thank you both for joining, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thanks a lot, Jordan.
Absolutely. And before I go, by the way, just a few minutes left, 7:00 Eastern, we're doing our members call. Last call, sign up as a member, statuscoup.com/join, and you will get the link to join our call through Zoom. It's through Zoom. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll go for an hour or two. Statuscoup.com/join. By the way, this applies to patrons too. So if you're a Status Coup member or patron, you will get the link to join the Zoom call. And if you sign up now, you'll get the link last minute. Let me say some thanks. I do not know how to pronounce your name, and I do not know what this currency is. Tejaswi Ragarama. I totally mispronounced your name. I'm sorry. It says 2,000. I don't think it's 2,000 US dollars. I'm not sure what that currency is, but thank you. Jordan, you are one of the bravest and most sincere journalists today, and I'm inspired by the way you have bounced back doing what more funded, resourceful YouTube channels aren't doing. How can I contact you? I am a video editor and can help with more polished caption videos. I thank you very much for the kind words and support. It is very nice to hear those kind words, because sometimes you think you're doing this for no reason. You could email us, info@statuscoup.com, info@statuscoup.com. Subject line video editor would be fine. That's info@statuscoup.com. Chris Garrett, $5. Knowledge is power. Status Coup breaks through the narrative and brings you the unfiltered truth. You're in control with what you do with it. Thank you, Chris. Lauderdale hates the clock, $5. How about if you are in closed primary states, temporary re-register as Democrat or Republican, depending on who your current reps are, and hashtag dump the incumbents. Sorry, I wish I could have asked them that when they were here. Sorry about that, but thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. All right, folks, I'm off to Zoom, where I hope you'll join us. We're going to be going on our Zoom members call in just a few minutes. So sign up now, statuscoup.com/join. And if you have any issue, by the way, if you have any issue at all, accessing the call, getting into the call, whatever, email us at info@statuscoup.com. And Colin, it'll drive him nuts. Poor guy. He'll help troubleshoot so you could get into the call. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. And I'll see you over at the Status Coup members call. $5 a month to support on the ground journalism. We'll see you in the members call in just a few minutes. Bye-bye.